And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hesser, back with another off-season supporter series. We are getting closer and closer to that lovely day that is the footy season getting started. And to get us there, I'm doing another off-season supporter series this year with an international and American feel. And joining me today, a very interesting individual. I cannot wait to talk. I was given this person's name by the Soaring to New Heights podcast, so the people that listen to it, a little bit of a clue on what club we're going to be talking about. We have Doug, aka Duxoop, joining us today. Doug, great to have you on the podcast today.
Great to be here, Donnie. Good day.
Fantastic, fantastic. Before we get into the footy part of the podcast, I thought let's have a little fun. Let's find out a little bit about the person that I'm talking with. So, a little bit about yourself outside of the game of football.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you my passion other than the Hawks is karaoke. Do a lot of that. Host every now and then. Been doing that for over 20 years now, and been following the Hawks for twice that long. Used to play frisbee golf. That was sort of my other interest, but then my hands went numb, so not quite so good at that anymore.
Oh boy.
But the weather's not really conducive to that right now, so I don't miss it.
Not exactly. Especially you are in Ohio, if I remember correctly. So I think you're going through about the same weather that we're going through here with me in Iowa right now. So let's jump right into it. As an international and USA fans, this is one of my favorite parts because the second question I have is, what is your finding footy story?
Well, that would go back to ESPN, the early days of ESPN in the early 80s when they were desperate for any live programming they could get their hands on. And they threw footy on in the middle of the night. And as a, and, 18-year-old or so, I'm flipping through the channels and I come across this thing that looks like complete and utter chaos. What we back then gave the politically correct term smear the
Hmm.
rhymes with smear. Um, and you watch it and you go, what the heck is going on? Okay, that guy's got the ball and everybody's trying to kill him.
That does
It
feel
looks
like it.
complete chaos. And then, I finally said, I kept coming across this thing and I'm going to sit down and watch a game and see if I can figure out what's going on. And the first game that I tuned into included Hawthorn, and they won that game. And at the time, I was a Steeler fan, and I guess the color on my TV was off a little bit. So I thought, oh, black and gold, same as the Steelers, and they just won. That's my team. And of course, 83, they ended up winning the championship that year. So I locked in from that point. And of course, later on, I found out, oh, it's brown, it's not black. Now, if I'd have picked the actual black and gold team, that would have been Richmond, and I would have had to wait until 2017 for a flag.
Hmm.
Instead, I got 9 flags from Hawthorn in that time. So I think I picked the right horse.
I love it. That's fantastic. That is I love those. There, like I said, there's always interesting little differentiations between people that have founded ESPN. I know that especially nowadays, present kids, YouTube is another big one. So I ask this of you again as the American, what's your favorite part about this unique sport that is Aussie rules football?
I think it's the best sport in the world. There is just nonstop action going on, a lot more than American football, where they wear helmets and padding because everybody's got to be all safe and wimpy. And I keep telling people, you have no idea if you ever actually tune into footy, how tough these players are, men and women. No padding, full contact, plenty of scoring. So it's not like soccer where 1-0, that was great. That was a high scoring contest because it just wasn't a 0-0 tie.
Hmm. It's fantastic. Again, I think it's one of those. I think a lot of Americans that if it were much more prevalent, I think a lot more Americans would fall in love with it because there's so many things that Americans love when it comes to it. The physicality of NFL football, the high scoring of basketball, and all these different sports that are kind of thrown in that are normal everyday American society. So 100% with you. So you kind of answered
Yeah,
this. So you kind of
it's
go ahead.
just that the time difference is the main thing I think that
Exactly.
keeps people out of it. It's even as a fan, it's tough to be
Hmm.
able to get up when the games are on and get internet connection. That's kind of a problem for me sometimes. There's a lot of days where okay, I got to catch that 5:30 bus and get down to where there's Wi-Fi, and I may have to miss like the first quarter of a game. That happened a few times. A lot of times I got to sleep through the game and find out in the morning what happened and go back and watch the highlights later.
Hmm.
So it's not easy from a time change standpoint.
Yep, yep. The time difference I think is the biggest killer of it. The fact that
Yeah.
it's played at very early hours of the morning for most of the country. So you've kind of already answered this. So you haven't had the luxury of playing the sport. So I asked this, sir, if you could go back in time, get yourself back into your prime days, would you have played if you had the opportunity?
I don't know. I wasn't much of an athlete in my teens. So I don't know. I really wasn't that skilled. Um, Baseball was, I took three swings and I struck out and went back to the bench. And when it was time to go play in the outfield, put me on the side where nobody hits the ball. And being left handed, of course, I need a left handed mitt. And they'd give me one that went on my right hand. And I went, wait a
Hmm.
minute. No, I'm left handed. Well, so do you throw right? No, I'll put the mid on my left hand. I'll catch the ball. Then I'll take the mid off to throw it back. They said, just go out there in that corner of the infield where you're not going to be a problem. And I'd go out, sit there, read my newspaper, and not worry about it.
Love it. That is great. Again, for some people, it's just the appreciation. So I totally get it on that one. So, as you kind of said, you were a huge Hawthorn Hawks supporter, and again, the story was fantastic on that. So we'll go to the next question: Is what was the first ever Hawks item that you were given or bought?
That would be I had a Brown Hawks hat. And what was it? Like $20 for the hat and 25 for the shipping from Australia.
Hmm.
And I think it was about the same for this one. I got the gold one you're seeing me in now. And I got actually two of these, gave one to my best friend because he became a Hawks fan too. So we got matching hats now. I had quite a hat collection there for a while until a couple of years ago. Had them all in my car, over 2 dozen different hats from different sports and different other things. And car got stolen and all the hats vanished along with it.
Oh
And this is
no.
the only one I got left.
Rough on that one. I'm sorry to hear that, but the good thing
Yeah.
is at least you got a Hawthorn hat. You got something to wear. You got something to wear when the beloved mighty Hawks get a chance when they play. So let's jump right into it. As somebody that I keep track of sports around the world, and I think fandom is one of the most interesting things in the world because nobody fans exactly the same. Some people are diehards. They go to every game. They live. They breathe. That's the only thing they pay attention to. And there's some people that can take themselves away from it. So I ask you, sir, describe your fandom of the Hawthorne Hawks for me.
Well, like I said, been following the men's team for 40 years. I didn't quite get into it there, and especially that 17-year gap between titles. I kind of fell away, because the Hawks weren't doing that great. And when we got up to '08, they're the mid 2000s and they started getting up there again. And I started following more. And when the three-peat happened, I was locked in on the three-peat and following that every week in 2015. What an interesting year that was with that
Hmm.
win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game start that they had that year. Ruffy became a favorite of mine, Rioli, and a lot of the guys from that three-peat era. Um, and since then, right after that is when I really started getting into the stats. Um, Back in the early days, my first sort of favorite player was Jason Dunstall. who did kicked all the goals, kicked a mess of goals. And so it became all about the scoring with me, because I also did a lot of fantasy sports back then, fantasy football. I was kind of in on the ground floor with that. It was a lot simpler then. You only focused on your position players on offense. You didn't have defense or anything involved. It was just all about the scoring. So for me, it's always been about who are the guys kicking the goals and scoring the points. And I now keep track of on an online text file. I do all the math myself because it's a hobby, and keep track of all the stats every week. I see who scored, how many goals, how many points. I update the entire history of the Hawthorn Football Club that way. When the women started, I did the same thing, started keeping track of all their points. I keep all the men's and women's for the 100-year history of the Hawks all together in one thing. And I just keep updating it. And that's a thing I do every week is during the season, update, bring all their numbers up, keep track of goals, excuse me, goals, points, and games. And points per game and goals per game are my main sort of categories that I keep track of, because I don't think I can handle any more than that. It's quite a load.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it. Can totally get it. In fact, I actually,
Disposals, hit outs, and all the other stuff.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, disposals, hit
know,
outs, hits to advantage, intercept marks. There's statistically, I think footy is one of the most statistically crazy sports because there's
yeah,
so many different statistics. Like all you have to do is watch a few of the shows that are reviewing it, and they pull out these random numbers, and I'm just like, huh? Because sometimes I feel like they just make stuff up just to make a stat. It's
yeah.
always interesting.
And
So
like I said,
go ahead.
saying that, yeah, I'm not an X's and O's guy, move
Hmm.
the magnets around kind of guy, a casual fan. And so there's only so many stats I can keep track of. So I
Hmm.
kept it to the ones that I listed.
Hmm.
Is just enough for me to keep me busy.
But the thing though is it's a labor of love. So there's
Exactly.
nothing with wrong with that. So you threw out some names. So I'm interested on this one because this is one of my favorite questions for somebody that has as many years of following the Hawks as you do. Do you have a
Mhm.
favorite player of the past that's donned the brown and gold? And do you have a favorite player currently on the Hawks list?
Yeah. Well, like I said, Jason Dunstall was kind of my first footy hero
Hmm.
for obvious reasons. And then the era of Ruffy and Rioli. Ruffy by far my favorite all time. Rioli, I really wish that whole mess going on with Cyril Rioli wasn't happening. Although I did see that he was planning to attend the Indigenous All Stars game this morning.
Hmm.
So I saw that. Apparently, Buddy Franklin couldn't make it, but Cyril was going to be there in Perth for that game. So that was good to hear. So I'm really hoping that everything is thawing on that whole front and that he finds his way back to us and back in the fold. Because hey, we're getting the band back together. And Ruffy came back last year and is in charge of recruiting and all that. A lot of players have come back in. Of course, Sam Mitchell now the coach. So it's like we're getting the band back together. Come on, Cyril.
Yeah,
And as
I
far as
hope so.
current players, I've got too many to list. There's just so many
It's
guys.
like picking
We've
your
got
favorite child. I totally understand
we've
it.
got so many great characters and great personalities on this team right now, men's and women's, that I don't know how I could really pick a favorite. Guinea and the Wiz are have been a blast to watch. Uh, Captain Sizzle, James Sicily is a favorite. John Newcomb, the Duke, just too many to name.
Mhm.
That's just a few.
Yeah, no,
Mitch
100.
Lewis, Mitch Lewis, man, if he'd keep healthy, he'd he'd be a lot more of a favorite. But I'm starting to like kind of get tired of the injuries all the time. Like, come on, man.
Hmm.
Cal Shadir has been a great find. Um, Family history with the club. That kid has got such smarts in front of goal when the ball is on the ground. It's just amazing to watch him do his thing.
Yeah, it
And
was
so,
scary.
of course, all the forwards are my guys.
Mhm.
All the ones kicking the goals are the guys I'm going to like the best. Mabior Chol really gets a bum rap from a lot of people. They think he's not putting forth the effort. I'm just thinking he makes it seem so effortless what he does
Hmm.
that I think people mistake that for laziness.
Hmm. No, I 100%. Cal Shadir is one of those, just watching him grow because you got to remember he's only 19 or 20 years old. He's still
And
very
hasn't
young.
played that long.
Exactly. So he's going to be fun to watch grow up because he's only going to mature. He's going to get stronger. He's going to get even better. He's already pretty darn good. You add some
Hmm.
years into him, it's going to be fun. So, which I think is a great transition because you keep coming up with names and more names again because there's no way to say it. The Hawks became the team that everybody talked about this year in the AFL because Hawkball became the word that everybody had on their lips because they came from an 0-5 start, absolutely blistering form, went into finals. Them and the Western
And
Bulldogs
boring
were,
as heck in 2023 and did a 180.
but I'll tell you this. So I'll ask you this, sir. Your thoughts on this season because again, 0-5, the season looked a little there to start off, but they absolutely roar. They get into finals. Unfortunately, they go out in the eliminate and they go in that out in that semifinal against Port Adelaide. But looking at it, this young team put together, Sam Mitchell starting to find something, and then you add some great things in the offseason. So your thoughts on this last season?
This past season was just so much fun. And like I said, they went it's just a 180 in style. And I'm a patient, I'm a patient fan. I was prepared for couple more years of a rebuild. And then, and 0-5, and yeah, I'm patient. It's a rebuild. These things take time. And then suddenly, what? We're 500. What? We're contenders for the top eight. What? We win a playoff game, and it's absolute chaos at the G, and just a blast to watch. And now, next thing you know, we got a new rival team, don't we?
Mhm.
Already hated Essendon and Geelong, and now it's time to hate Port too.
Oh boy, yeah, the drama with Ken
And
Hinkley was interesting, but
and I'm looking at him having a year to go and thinking, you could go a lot sooner. I won't miss you.
love it.
Sorry, but
Absolutely love it. No, it's fantastic. The Hawks became everybody's second team, almost like Collingwood had the year before, because everybody wanted to see what they would do. Because this was a group that they're brash, they don't care, they're young, they just kind of go for it, and it
mhm.
kind of endeared you to them. So it'll be fascinating to see how they go this particular season, which is the great transition because you
The
add a
sexy
couple of
team.
really good pieces. You add in Tom Barrass on the back line.
Mhm.
It's the year. Do we see the Hawks get into the top four? Do we see them in flag contention? Are you one of those, let's make finals and then see how things turn out?
I'm ready for anything. We're the sexy team now. We're the ready for prime time players now. How many of our games, most of our first games, the first part of the season are going to be prime time down there.
Mhm,
We're looking at what, 5 a.m., 7 a.m. type of
mhm,
game times here. So that's okay. I can make that adjustment, no problem.
mhm.
Um, yeah, it went from being boring to everybody wants to see us now. And I can't wait till everybody starts hating us again because that means we're doing something right. I love that three-peat era where everybody just were hating on us. That's when you know you're onto something. We
Mhm.
feed on that as Hawks fans. We feed on your hatred. Let the hate flow through you.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. Like I said, it's gonna be interesting. The Hawks are a team I'm gonna have my eye on big time at the early part of this season because how do the new pieces come in and then will you see that same brash hawk ball style of footy played next year? I cannot wait. So, but now I'm gonna
I
have a
know
little.
now in a hospital stay the last couple months and rehab the last couple months, I had some medical issues. And one of the things they wanted to do just to check and see if I was diabetic or not was check my
Mhm.
blood sugar every day. Um, I got numb hands also, and so I got a couple fingers that have been numb the longest. And if you want to prick my finger for to check my sugar, here, do this one. That's the numbest one. I don't feel anything. I don't have any tattoos, but now I know where I'd get one. I'd get one on my right pinky where I can't feel anything anyway. I can't feel any needles pricking me. That's where I'd probably get a Hawthorn tattoo if I was going to do that. Either that or uh, borrow an idea from George Carlin, tattoo on my finger. If found, please drop in nearest mailbox.
That is great. I absolutely love it. So
But
my
I think
next
hawkball would be a nice tattoo to get right about now.
would not be, especially the way things are going. So I want to have a little bit of fun because I know up here in the States, everybody that watches sports thinks they're a great general manager, that they can do the job of the general manager. And down in Australia, we have what's called the list manager, the same thing. So I'm gonna have a little bit of fun. I'm gonna install you as the Hawks general manager, as the Hawks
Uh-oh.
footy manager for one day. You can take one player from any of the other 17 teams to make this Hawks team ripe for a chance to win a flag this year. Who's the one player you bring over to the brown and gold?
Oh, well, see now, a couple years ago, it would have been easy and to say Dusty Martin
Hmm.
would have been the obvious choice. I mean, the only three Norm Smith medalists. Um, kudos to him on that because he's the only guy to do it. Happy retirement to him. Beyond that, Bobby Hill was pretty impressive there in the grand final previous to this year.
Hmm.
He might be a good pickup.
You would definitely bring up.
Beyond
You
that,
already got some electric little forwards. You add him. Oh boy, that's a
yeah,
scary thought process for the
I'm all
Hawks the
about
way
the
they are.
offense.
I love
I
it.
was a chart. I was a Chargers, Air Coryell era kind of fan with all the high
Mhm.
scoring that was going on. So, you know, put 18 forwards on the field, as far as I'm concerned. Let's light up the scoreboard like a pinball machine. No, that's me. That's why I'm not into list. That's why I'm not in list management.
I know. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
You're the air raid type of footy fan.
So
So good.
I really don't. It's kind of hard to follow the other. I'm so focused on the Hawks that it's really hard to focus on the other guys. Um, I know Christian Petraka's not been too happy with Melbourne lately.
Mhm.
Hey, want to come over to the Hawks, have some fun?
Well, that'd be another one. The fact you bring in Brass this year, these kind of it stirs up that defense. You already got Sicily there already, so you're already pretty
Yeah.
solid. And
Well, Sicily.
hopefully CJ is playing a lot better this year and healthy because he's electric when he's playing. The biggest
Yeah,
issue has been he can't keep his body healthy. If he stays healthy, oh boy, that defense for Hawthorn looks absolutely dangerous. So I'm
yeah, but
100% with you.
Sicily's a versatile guy. We can swing him up
Jump
forward.
forward,
He
yep.
started out that way. I think he does great up there, and I think with the injuries to Deere and Lewis right now, I'm all for putting Sicily up there. I'm all for it. Hardwick too. Um, I like those guys. That I like the fact that we've got a lot of players that we can really move the magnets around. And well, okay, let's throw you up forward for a while. Uh, and it's harder for another team to plan for that. Where is he going to be today?
Mhm.
Well, he might be back in defense. He might be up on offense. You never know. So it's hard to kind of keep track of players from the other teams. The other guy I was going to say was Jack Higgins. That one goal he did where he kind of stopped the ball just before the goal line, threw it around the post to himself, and kicked
Mhm.
it backwards, did like a backflip to
Mhm.
to get his foot behind it and kick it through. I was like,
Yep.
that's some gymnastics right there. That is some situational awareness
Yep.
that I think would be valuable to any team.
He's another one dangerous when footy in hand he's very dangerous especially within 30 meters of goal. I'm 100% with you on that one. So and I know as somebody that I was introduced to you by the Soaring to New Heights podcast. Liam is a fantastic guy. I absolutely love him. I know that you would put in your message that you have an impression
Liam
of him, so I don't know if I want to let that happen or not.
Liam is pretty awesome. I kept the thing I kept kind of teasing about was Denver Granger Barras, DGB, and how back there in 2023 we were trying him up forward. Just again, sort of, let's try this out. Let's see how you do. And he kicked a couple goals, and I thought, hey, I'm all for it. Something different to do. Let's put him up forward and see how he does. And I really especially think, man, it's too bad that we cut him, because with the injuries, we could use another tall guy up front right about now. He might have come in handy. So it was really sad that we cut him, because I kept teasing Liam about, hey, this could be the week we throw DGB up forward, and Liam's response in text was always the same. It became a catchphrase that I try to get out of him, and I could hear, even though it was just typed, I could hear him saying, he's a defender.
Love it. Sorry, Liam, when you listen to this, that is no offense. I set him up on that one. So
I've
which is
been
a great
working on the voice. It's kind of a Mr. Bean, but a higher register, but very
we
distinctive. I
I,
really
I
enjoy.
I seriously love the guy. He's so fantastic. The fact that he does so much for the women's game, especially he has
Yeah,
this entire spreadsheet that he links me in on to keep track of who's moved, who hasn't moved, what draft picks are where. Like the guy is incredible. Absolutely love him to
I
death. So again,
learned
shout out
I
Liam.
learned so
Huge
much
hearts to you,
from
dude.
Liam.
You are fantastic. So I know you keep track of the women's game because of the fact that you connect with him. So your thoughts on this year's Hawks team because third season in the AFLW, and they blitzed the league, shocking everybody, getting to the finals. Unfortunately, fall in straight sets in the finals. Again, a Port Adelaide team that I think is just like Hawthorn, could be scary over the next couple of years with not only their youth, but their ability to grow with that youth is going to be fun. So, your thoughts on Hawthorn team? Because the women's team, they were just like the men, hawkball, brash, young, got after it. So much fun to watch.
Borrowed a page from him. Yeah, exactly. I was really happy to see Aileen Gilroy kind of took the page
Hmm.
from Ginnivan on goal celebrations. And it's interesting that, like I said, when I keep the stats of all the players through history, Gilroy and Ginnivan, one after the other alphabetically. I got the list alphabetically. There's no players between Gilroy and Ginnivan. So it's interesting that they kind of are the two that are doing all the coming up with the creative goal celebrations.
Hmm.
And anyway, as far as, like I said, Liam has been so helpful in following the women's team too. And I'll be honest with you, and it's kind of a sore spot right now. I honestly didn't think I was going to follow the women's team when we started 3 years ago.
Hmm.
I wasn't really sure if I was going to follow them. But then Hawk's social media has been so on point and so great at what they're doing, light years ahead of other teams. They put out that video of Talia Fellows and Ben McAvoy, and how he recognized her because he knew her juniors coach, and she didn't know who he was, even though he was captain of the team, legend of the sport, and she didn't know who he was. And so her teammates started calling her Big Boy, and that became her nickname. And I was really sad that they cut her loose this year, because she was the player that was the first kind of personality I locked in on when they at the beginning of that at the beginning of that clip, they say to her, Talia, what'd you do? That tone of voice is oh, we got a character here. And then seeing her
Definitely.
later in videos, and it just, as I told Liam, she's fun, she's funny, and she's fast. And I'm when they cut her at the end of this year, didn't re-sign her, I was really sad, because I don't think I would have followed the women's team if not for her.
Mhm.
But there have been so many other personalities on that team that are fun to follow too. Um, Kempe was another one that turned out to be a great personality and had a breakout year this past year. Was a pretty pleasant surprise in how she stepped up her game this year.
Mhm.
And we just got a lot of characters on that team now that it's fun to follow. And props to Daniel Webster. He's the right coach for the right time. But I got to tell you, I really miss Beck Goddard. I was heartbroken when
Mhm.
she retired because you want to talk about a character. Beck Goddard was an amazing character. The creative things that she would come up with to tell players they were making their debut, some interesting way to do it every time. And you think, what is there that this woman cannot do? And next thing you know, at the best and fairest, she pulls out a guitar and does a song, and she's good at it.
Mhm.
As a karaoke guy, you know I appreciate that. So
Mhm.
I'm like, is there anything this lady can't do? What a freaking Renaissance woman. I was really sad when she retired, but Webster's got us going in the right direction, obviously. So I
Mhm.
can't really complain.
Yeah,
Um,
they built that Hawks team a lot like what Webster's former club, the Brisbane Lions, and you can see the influence of Brendan Starcevich on that. And I agree with you. Beck Goddard is as sad as it is to lose her. That what she did for women's footy is fantastic, and it's
yeah,
only going to grow. It's only going to grow from there. Her impact on the game is something that will never be forgotten. So again,
she was
I've
she was the right one to get our team started
exactly.
for
Yep.
sure.
Yep. She put some really good foundation pieces in there. It's going to be fun. This is a Hawks team just like the men. I'm thoroughly intrigued to watch over the next couple of seasons because the building blocks are there for a premiership. The question will be is can they get over the hump? That'll be the $1 million
Yeah,
question
it's a
there.
great
So
time. It's a great time to be a Hawks fan right now.
that it is. That it is. And I will do something that I don't normally do, but I will bring up something. Um, what I love about Duxoop is he actually calls me out, and I appreciate that he did this. He texts me and he goes, "Remember, Tilly Lucas Rod is non-binary." So I do want to come out and apologize for any times that I may have misgendered her. That is not something that I ever want to do.
You
And,
like
and I
just now?
yeah, and I appreciate that he told me this. I'm
I know.
sorry.
I slip up too when it comes to pronouns, so I get
Yep.
it.
But I absolutely love Tilly. They are fantastic. Such an incredible player. So much fun. I have to catch myself because I want to be sure that I use the
I
correct
know.
pronoun. So it's
I
so it's
know.
fantastic. So thank you for calling me out. I do appreciate that. If I miss that, I am more than willing. Please let me know because I never want to say the wrong pronoun for anybody in the league. So I try to keep track of that when I do. So I really appreciate that he did that. So we're winding down the podcast, and I want to have a little fun because, again, this sport is based in Australia. It is set in Australia. So I got to ask this, Duxu, have you ever been to the great country of Australia to see a game? And if not, is it something that's on the horizon that you're looking at doing?
I really wish I could. I really wish I could get down there and get out of this S-hole country. I'll be honest with you. I keep telling people, you know what? Call the authorities and tell them that I'm here illegally and I need to be deported back to Australia. It's good to have that. Somebody just last night took out the old line. If you don't like it here, why don't you leave? Well, you keep saying that, but nobody's willing to drive me to the border and give me the money I need that I don't have right now. If it was as easy as said, if it was easy done as it is said, don't
Hmm.
you think I'd be gone right by now?
I completely get
I
I
would
completely get your thought process on that, sir. Completely,
I would love
completely
to,
do. So
if I find some money on the street and buy a lottery ticket with it and win, I'll be at every Hawks game the rest of my life.
not a bad way, not a bad way. I will. I jokingly said one time. I said if I knew I could seek asylum and they'd actually wouldn't laugh at me, I would do
I would,
it.
like I said, I'd be at every Hawks game the rest of my life. Men's, women's, blind, wheelchair, box hill, all of them.
That'd be
And
that'd be
yeah,
fantastic.
it's not as easy to follow the wheelchair team and the blind team as
Hmm.
well as the men's and the women's. But Sebi Johnson, what a story Sebi Johnson is with for the blind team.
Hmm.
This kid goes from being, falling through a roof at 13, losing his sight, to within a year running out with the Hawks through the banner as a fan, to being the first player signed when they start their blind team to becoming a champion the first year with the in the club's history they win the championship. He goes from being just an ordinary kid to an ordinary Hawthorn fan to a champion of the club and a legend, all in the span of 6 months there. Back in was it 2019? I think 2018.
Mhm.
And has won two more flags with the blind team, and is now, of all things, an award-winning photographer. So, I mean,
Talent,
again, another one of
so
those
much talent.
characters we got that is there anything you can't do? What
Seems
an
like it.
amazing and like he says, if I can do it, you can do it.
Hmm.
So
Agree.
what a great story he's been.
Love it. So we'll go back to it. So I want to put you in a time machine that when you get a chance to go to Australia, I know that there's a lot of people like with Americans, we love food at the footy. So I got to ask, is there something when you go to your first ever footy game in Australia, is there something that you really want to enjoy when you go?
I can't believe meat pies have not caught on in the States.
I'm surprised myself.
That's the kind of thing like poutine in Canada. Why can't Americans get poutine right? You would think, and so like, okay, work on poutine and then start getting meat pies over here because I'm really interested to try a meat pie.
They're actually
If there were a way to
they're
get them
really
here, I
not
would
that
do it.
difficult. I've made them. I actually have the mini pie crust tins, so I actually make them for grand
Uh-huh.
finals the last couple of years. It's really not that difficult. Really, all it is. I mean, there's a little bit more differentiation in the sauce, but for most people, what you can do if you'd like is just basically take manwich and hamburger. That's basically what a meat pie is. It's basically a sloppy Joe in a pie tin in a pie crust.
Okay.
So it's
Wasn't
the
it a little
easiest way
more
I tell most
kind of
people.
like
So
gravy though?
yeah, you can do gravy. I know some people add cheese to it. It's one of those. It's always flexible. It isn't one of those simple
Okay.
ones that it's just only can be done this way. No, I've seen there's English versions
Uh-huh.
that have cheese and lamb. There's all sorts of ones. So it's a very flexible one. But the basic meat pie that most people get, the 4 and 20s and stuff like that, basically all it basically is beef mince or hamburger and
Mhm.
some kind of gravy slash, like I said, a little bit like manwich, like a sloppy Joe, a little bit is what I would consist it of. Um, for most
And
Americans over here, that's the simple way to say it on that one. But very, very tasty. If you do, then the biggest question and most Aussies will then ask you is do you have tomato sauce, aka a little bit less sugary than ketchup, or not? Is the question then after that.
yeah.
So
Well, I guess it depends. I mean, yeah, I could do that.
well, if you get a chance, if you do try it, you have to let me know what you think of an Aussie meat pie. So now,
Okay.
since we're going to the
It's kind
footy
of in
game,
the meatloaf department there. You could go with gravy or tomato
very true,
on
very true.
your meatloaf either way. So I guess
Yeah,
it's kind of the same as that.
yeah. So as
Just
we
wrap
said,
a crust around it.
in your trip to Australia, the mighty MCG is probably one of the places that you want to go. So I'll ask this: when you go, is there a place in the mighty MCG that you want to sit to watch the game, or is it one of those where you kind of just want to experience the MCG? So do you have an ideal seat at the MCG that you
Anywhere.
think you want to sit at?
If I could get there, I wouldn't be choosy. Although it looked like that one section where they were wearing all the wizard hats in the playoff game would have been fun.
Yeah, I remember that
Especially in
thing.
that
That was
post game interview.
fantastic.
That post game interview with Guinea and the Wiz, and he put the hat on him, and everybody went nuts. That would have been a great place to be.
Oh yeah, that would have been that would have been the scene for absolute sure. And then I always end my podcast when we're talking about footy with this question. Favorite game of football you have ever seen? Live, delayed, online. Favorite game of footy you have ever seen?
Ah, oh, boy, there's a lot to choose from. I guess offhand, just off the top of my head, I would say the 2015 grand final because I actually drove to the state capitol, which I really wish we would rename after Neil Armstrong. It'd be a better name than Columbus, but I drove down there for the grand final. There was the closest viewing party that I could find, and so I drove all the way down there. What 3 hour drive to make this party, and I think I was one of maybe a handful. See, I think it's like the American footy team down there. They had like the Jackalopes.
Hmm.
I think they were actually hosting the party at this bar, and just about all but a handful of us were rooting for West Coast. And I recall getting toward the end of the game, I called Cyril Rioli to win the Norm Smith, and I was enjoying it. And the play by about three-quarter time, everybody everybody else started leaving. I stayed to the end of the telecast. The bar staff didn't mind. They knew I was watching, and I watched it until it went off the air. I left maybe 3 in the morning that night, 3 or 3:30 or whatever, and started to drive back. Didn't got home at like 6:30, 7 in the morning. But what a blast that was watching that game down there. And in a room full of, haters, as I said at the time. It's just part of the fun of it. And calling Cyril for the Norm was a proud moment for me.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun that day watching it down there.
An incredible game on
Hodge
that
from
one. So
nowhere.
so, um, Duxoop, this has been fantastic. It's been great to finally to catch up and to be able to talk with you. Like I said, Liam connected me with you, and it's been fantastic to be able to sit back and go back and forth as another fan of in the States. It is fantastic to be able to sit down and have a chat with you. I really appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Donnie. Thank you
Awesome,
very, very much.
awesome. It has been so much fun. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this particular podcast today. Again, if you like what you are listening to, please like and subscribe on YouTube or any of the podcast stations that have this particular podcast. Again, we do everything we can to support footy over here in the States, whether it's covering the AFL, the AFLW, or any of the state leagues. And then we do a few other fun things during the off season. So that is going to do it for today's podcast. Have a wonderful day, and we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very